Oh, I got to tell you, MMA is absolutely catching fire, and so are we. Welcome into the latest episode of Combat Coach. I am the coach. He is Ian Parker, part of the Duck Army, or the leader of the Dark Army. And Ian, I got to tell you, when we have Bellator on a Friday night and we got UFC on a Saturday night, it can't get any better than that. Am I right?
You are correct. Listen, there's no shame in having MMA every day, so I'm all for it. I'm here for it, man. Let's go.
By the way, if you haven't watched our Early Edge episode, we recorded earlier today. There are a couple of picks there from Bellator tonight. So we will send that out as well. You can go to our social media. We've tweeted it out there. So we've got Bellator covered. This episode of Combat Coach, we're going to focus on UFC on ABC 2. Now, in my humble opinion, the card is not very good. But they're going to have the card, so we're going to have the picks. Because guess what? The tickets that we take to the pay window, Ian, they don't care where they came from. They just care that they cash. Am I right?
That's spot on. Listen, they don't have to be the biggest names to make us the most amount of money. So we find the value regardless.
It's going to be very, very interesting, Ian, to see what Kevin Holland has in store in our main event. Because a few weeks ago, we did handicap his fight. We did pick him, and he went out, and not only did he lay an egg, but it was one of the worst performances I've ever seen. I was shocked when I saw that Dana White is putting him back in a 5-round main event in a month's time on ABC. Were you?
Yes and no. Holland's always been one of those go-to guys on short notice between two divisions, so it doesn't completely surprise me. He didn't take any damage, and there was no way they were going to be willing to lose a main event with Marvin Vettori for ABC. So it's one of those things where, right time, right opportunity, and for Kevin Holland to get back in there makes sense.
All right, let's get into it. We got a lot of fights on the card today, so we're going to rip through them. We always do Combat Coach in 20 minutes or less. All right, let's start with the prelims. Impa versus Sasha. Impa is a minus 290 favorite. Sasha comes back at plus 230. Over 2.5, minus 225. The under 2.5 coming back at plus 185. What do you like here?
I like Impa here, even though he came off a freak loss to Joaquin Buckley. I just think he's the better athlete, the better overall fighter over Sasha. Even though Sasha's coming off a nice win, this is a good bounce back fight for Impa at minus 290. Do not bet him straight. We'll rope him into a parlay later on.
Okay, parlay Impa. All right, fight number 2, De-Un Jung, a minus 135, taking on William Knight, coming back at plus 105. A relatively even fight, at least as far as the odds are concerned. The over is 1.5 in this fight, minus 160. The under coming back at plus 130. What do you like?
I'm very surprised here. I'm going to lean towards William Knight. I just think that he keeps being underrated and undervalued for some reason. I know it's probably due to experience, but the dude's an absolute beast of an athlete. He keeps getting better every single time. So I'm going to go and take the underdog here, William Knight at plus 105.
All right, I like getting plus money anytime that you can get it. Okay, fight number 3, Jordan Griffin, underdog here, plus 105, taking on Luis Saldana, minus 135 as the favorite. The over in this fight is 2.5, minus 190. The under 2.5 coming back at plus 155. What do you like?
I like Luis Saldana here. I just think he's going to be too much for Griffin. Griffin's a little too predictable in his striking, and he telegraphs everything. And I think Saldana is getting this fight at the right time.
All right, very good. All right, fight number 4 looks a little something like this. Hunter Azure is the underdog, plus 140. Taking on Jack Shore, minus 170 as the favorite. The over 2.5, minus 160. And the under 2.5 coming back at plus 130. What do you like?
Battle of two really solid prospects. I like Jack Shore here, though. I just think that we have not really seen too many flaws in his game with Hunter. Hesitant with his striking. His cardio seems to fade a little bit towards the end. And when a wrestler gets tired and doesn't have the best striking, they tend to telegraph their shots. Jack Shore is a phenomenal grappler, better striker, and I think he gets it done. I like him at minus 170.
All right, very good. Next fight, Jargis Dano, plus 250 as the underdog. The favorite in this matchup is Jorgen De Castro, minus 310. Over 1.5, minus 115, the same number coming back at under 1.5. What do you make of this fight?
Two big boys. I like Jorgen De Castro here, although sometimes he just doesn't. After a couple of those fights where we saw him do really well, he hasn't been the same. I like under 1.5 here. I think one of these big boys is going to take a nap. So that's the way I'm going to go with this fight.
I love when you pick an under in a heavyweight fight. I just get pumped because I'm on the edge of my seat every single time because I need that knockout in the first 7.5 minutes, I guess. All right, the next fight here, John Makdessi, plus 160. The favorite is Ignacio Bahamondes, minus 195. The over 2.5, minus 180, and the under coming back at plus 150. What do you like?
Bahamondes is the real deal. Bright prospect off the Contender Series with one of the best knockouts I think I've ever seen in general. Comes from a really great camp. A lot of the fighters, guys like Bilal Muhammad, rave about this kid. And John McDessie's been around for a while. 6'1" versus 5'7". McDessie is a short, stocky kickboxer who hasn't really changed up his game. I just think Ignacio is going to bring the fight to him and really get a nice seasoned veteran on his resume. So I'm going to go with Bahamondes here.
All right, very good. Next fight, Aaron Blanchfield, plus 200 as the underdog, taking on Norma Dumont, minus 255. The over 2.5, minus 280. The under coming back at plus 220. What do you like?
Oh, this fight's probably going to go over, but these are one of these spots where I think we're going to take a shot on the underdog here. Erin is a former champ, and she's a very bright prospect. The only negative, she's taking this fight on short notice. What we've seen at a Norma Dumont against her fight against Megan Anderson is we didn't really see a whole lot. So I think right now in this situation, you can't go minus 255, and the over at minus 280 is a little too much because you just never know, because I think the grappling difference is big here. I like Erin Blanchfield. I've heard a lot of good things, and she's a solid prospect. So plus 200. Let's go.
Well, we got to have an underdog at some point. We know it never goes chalk all the way through. So at some points, you got to pick your spots. And this looks like a really good spot to do that, plus 200. Okay, next fight. Scott Holtzman, plus 205 as the underdog. Matus Gamrot, the favorite, at minus 245. The over coming in 2.5, minus 245. The under coming back at plus 205. What do you like?
Scott Holtzman's a really underrated guy, just not the biggest name. However, in his last fight against Beneil Dariush, he got absolutely crushed. Gamrot's a really tough wrestler, sambo guy with power, and his pace might be too much against a very hesitant Holtzman. So I like Gamrot here.
Okay, all about the pace, he says. Okay, next fight, the veteran. Seems like he fights 3 to 4 times a year like clockwork. At least it seems that way. And Jim Miller, plus 205 as he's starting to get to the end of his career. Taking on Joe Selecki, the minus 245 favorite. The over 2.5, minus 145. The under coming back at plus 115. What do you like?
Talk about the ultimate company guy. You're right. Every card, it seems like Jim Miller is on it, and it doesn't matter who he fights. It's prospect, seasoned vet. It doesn't even matter. He's always ready to go. Jim Miller, I think, is coming towards the end of his career. There's no question here. Always dangerous on the ground, but willing to bang and throw strikes against Joe Selecki. Selecki's a very solid prospect. We saw good striking, very good submissions. We haven't seen a whole lot negatively out of him. I think this is just the right time for him to get a name like Jim Miller on his resume. So I like the young gun here. Give me Joe Selecki. And we're going to throw him in a parlay.
All right, matchmaking is always so important, and especially in MMA, because as the prospect is coming up, you never want to put them in too early against somebody really, really good and halt that momentum. I think you bring up a great point. This is a great spot against a really big name that is not at the height of his career any longer. All right, let's move on to the main card on ABC, and the first fight's going to be Mike Perry, Platinum, plus 110. Daniel Rodriguez is the favorite here, though, at minus 140. The over 2.5, minus 130. The under coming back at plus 100. What do you make of this first fight on the main card?
I think the odds are completely off here, to be honest with you. Daniel Rodriguez coming off a loss to Nicholas Dalby. Other than that, we've seen Rodriguez can take a shot. Very strong, good striker. Cardio, not the best. Mike Perry, he's been fighting really top-level competition. To get destroyed by Vicente Luque is not... I can't really knock him for that one because he's beaten a lot better guys. And when people question Mike Perry's grappling, you saw what he did to Mickey Gall, who's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I think Perry is actually better everywhere here. As long as he comes out and took this fight seriously, I think Mike Perry is actually a solid underdog to take. I think his striking will be more technical. And I think actually we may see a little grappling involved here. And I'm going to take Platinum Perry here at plus 110.
He has been.
That sounds.
He's been so hard to count on, because you don't know how much he's putting into his camps. I mean, hell, a couple of fights ago, he had his girlfriend was his corner man.
Well, what I can tell you, he's back in Central Florida training with Alex Nicholson and his father and his original camp. I don't think his girlfriend will be the only corner person this time. I think he's really got it together. And you know what? We're going to see it. It's just too hard to pass up with the level of competition he's fought.
I hope he's got it together. I really do on a personal level. I hope he's got his stuff together. Certainly the UFC has not turned their back on him, and that's a good thing if he's doing the personal work to deserve to be on these cards. All right, next fight, Nina Ansaroff, minus 135, taking on Mackenzie Dern, plus 105. The over 2.5 coming in at minus 185. The under coming back at plus 155. These are two pretty well-known names in the female division. One is going to have a different name come Saturday night. Am I right?
Yep, Nina Ansaroff will be Nina Nunez, which that line may jump up to minus 200 just because of that last name.
Yeah,
It really might.
that'd be hilarious.
If it's either Nunez or Nurmagomedov, that line's automatically minus 210. So here's the thing about Nina. She's coming off a loss to Tatiana Suarez when she was really peaking in her career. And she left, got pregnant, had a baby 6 months after giving birth. She's jumping in against someone, Mackenzie Dern, who's won four times and continuously improving and evolving her game while Nina took the time off. I think this is a tough fight for both women. This is probably one of the more intriguing fights, to be honest, on the entire card. I just think that Mackenzie Dern, where the difference on the ground is what separates them. And again, another underdog spot here. I like Mackenzie Dern.
All right, plus the 105. Okay, 3 fights left. Sam Alvey is an underdog at plus 160, taking on Julian Marquez, minus 200 as a favorite. The over 2.5, minus 105. Now, the under coming back at minus 125 in this matchup. What do you like?
You got two bruisers here, and you saw what Marquez did with Maki Pitolo. Was losing, but had the heart to come back and finish that fight in crazy fashion. I like Marquez here. I don't love it, but I do like it because Sam Alvey currently is around, I think, 215 pounds or 210 when I read yesterday. And he's got a cut to 185. It's a huge cut. Also, the way Alvey fights, he just looks for that power left. If Marquez could avoid that after the first round, it should be his. He does have the better cardio. So I like Julian Marquez here.
Okay, let's move on to our co-main event of the evening. Arnold Allen. Plus 120 is the underdog. The favorite coming in, so Sodiq Yusuff, minus 150. The over 2.5, minus 120, 95. In the under, coming back at plus 160. What do you like in the co-main?
Well, kudos to the UFC for putting together this. This is a wild matchup. You usually don't see this high level of prospect fight each other at this point in their career. Sodiq Yusuff, phenomenal striker. Arnold Allen, the same, along with, I think he just has a better ground game. I like the over in this one. I don't see either one finishing the other, to be honest. And if I had to lean, this is a really, really tough fight. I kind of like Arnold Allen here. Yusuff is the more technical striker. He throws better combos. Excuse me. But Allen's angles are a little bit better, and he can get the fight to the ground. That's where the major difference is between the two. So I'm going to roll with Arnold Allen here at plus 120 and go over 1.5.
All right, Allen and the over 1.5. All right, that brings us to our main event of the evening. It still shocks me to say it, but Marvin Vettori is the minus 350 favorite, taking on Kevin Holland. Yes, that Kevin Holland who literally didn't even fight in his 5-round main event a month ago, which I believe was also on ABC. Am I right? So this would be 2 times in a row, wasn't it?
It's an interesting situation here with Kevin Holland stepping in. Look, Holland's got the opportunity of a lifetime to bounce back off of the obvious worst performance in the history, well, not in the history, but of his career at least. Believe it or not, I have seen 1 or 2 that were worse.
Stop.
Yeah, Caleb Starnes versus Nathan Quarry. Oh. Go watch that fight. Worst fight in the history of the UFC. Not because of Nathan, but because of Caleb Starnes. Ran in circles. I swear to God, literally ran. And Nate went like this. Nate Quarry was fighting like this. Shit you not. If I'm wrong, I will give everyone free bets for a year. That's literally how the fight went. Marvin Vettori, if anyone deserves a main event spot right now after what he did to Jack Hermanson, it is him. Minus 350 is a little challenging because Kevin Holland is still a talented fighter. You can't just go by the one loss compared to all the impressive wins he's had. However, I don't see either guy finishing the other. I think this fight goes the full distance. I think Marvin Vettori, if he does win, which I think he should, he's not a stupid fighter. So he's not going to try and take Kevin's head off, risking a loss himself. I think Marvin Vettori wins and wins by decision at plus 175.
All right. Great way to bring down the odds there for novice MMA bettors that are watching the show right now. A great way to bring odds down are to pick a win by a specific way, either by decision, by knockout, by submission. It's a great way. That's why Ian's analysis is so important. So you understand the kind of fighters that you're dealing with at home. Okay, let's bring up the recap here as we rip through it. Grab your paper, grab your pencil, and as always, we will be tweeting during the show. So anything that changes or maybe an extra play that Ian wants to give out, make sure you follow him, Ian Parker MMA. All right, Impa, put him in a parlay, the first fight of the night because the odds are so long at minus 290. Second fight, you love Knight at plus 105. Then you like Saldana, minus 135. Then Jack Shore, minus 170. Then De Castro. You love the under 1.5 in this fight. Then Bahamondis minus 195. You see great upside for that fighter. Then Blanchfield in the next one. Be very careful though, you say. Then also put him probably the over will come in this fight as well. Then Holtzman, Gamrot. You like Gamrot in that one. Selecki over Miller. Also throw him in a parlay. Then on the main card, you like Mike Perry. He's the underdog, plus 110. Then Dern, plus 105. Then Marquez, minus 200. And then in our main event, or co-main event, rather, the over 1.5. And then in the main event, you like Vettori by decision. That would come back at plus 175 and maybe sprinkle a little bit on the fight to go the distance. All right. We can't give you any more information than what we just have. Don't forget, go and check out our Early Edge episode if you want some Bellator picks for later tonight. But very, very slim on that front this week, just to be completely candid and honest with you. Ian, let's go make some money, pal. What do you say?
I'm in. Let's do it.
All right, for Ian Parker and the Duck Army, our incredible producer, Cody Merrill. I am the coach. Remember, if there is a card, there's going to be a combat coach. Let's cash some tickets, take everything straight to the pay window. We'll see you next time, right here on Combat Coach. Take care.